Hello, everyone. I am Kristen Carver. I work for St. Louis City SC, and I am the team matchday correspondent as well as live experience manager. And joining me right now is David Vedder, our director of live experience. And then we have Tripp Bartling, director of business intelligence. And then we have Jeremy Tripp, director of digital experience. And then Matt Sebek, chief experience officer. And I think you wanted to say something to start things off, Matt.
Yeah, no, thanks for having us. First, has anyone been to a game yet? Yeah, wow. All right, cool. So we're gonna get into a panel discussion. I thought we'd provide maybe 10 minutes or so, just an introduction on some of the secret sauce that we've been able to endure. I think the last 3 years, building a club, building a stadium, building a fan base that we're pretty proud about. I think this is my first job in sports, and never really looked at a sports club as a startup. It very much is. From one employee to a little over 100 now. We have been through the same challenges and more that many of startups in this region and globally face. So, to grow at that pace is quite remarkable. But unlike a lot of other startups, we kind of knew what our critical mass would be. We knew that we were eventually going to play a game where, startups and kind of, to go through the product life cycle, sometimes your customer targets pivot a little bit, or your launch date may change a little bit. We were operating on a pretty intense deadline in a very publicly visible space. So I think the panel discussion will definitely dissect some of those cultural issues. But leading up to that, wanted to provide a little context on where we're at and how we've grown the last 3 years. Sound like a plan?
Let's do it.
Okay. So for those that haven't been to a game yet, I thought we'd provide, start with a video, a little bit of hype that kind of brings you into our world. So here's a little 2-minute sizzle.
And now, you give the fans something to celebrate. It's in the game here tonight. And at the end of it, for the total sitting down, we've done it. For the first time ever, an MLS expansion franchise has started 4-0. I think it's indicative of why this team is successful. It's a selfless group looking for each other.
All right, fun. Love starting with that. There's a line in there that I still love. It's we invite you to turn off the world, turn on the game. Very much wanted to create a business, a brand, and ultimately a club that allowed people to kind of forget about their daily worries and enter a world at City Park that was very much about fantasy and pride and imagination and hope and togetherness. So I think that's been the magical unlock for us. Is I think there's a critical mass of people here in St. Louis and across the region that fundamentally believe that our best days are in front of us, not behind us. And so in that video, there's a lot to take away from, youth kids scoring goals to the food, the music, the coaching, all of that kind of comes together in this cathedral of City Park. So we love what we're building. We're really, really proud about it. Our ownership group is remarkable. It is the Taylor family and the Kavanaugh family, two St. Louis families, the Taylor family of Enterprise Rent-A-Car, the Kavanaugh family of Worldwide Technology. And so this is a group that is here to stay. And they knew that they could use the power of sport and the emotional connection of sport to create a new language about St. Louis. And you see that in the video, and you starting to see it come outside St. Louis as well, and that validation from the outside in across sport, certainly business for Fast Company to write articles about a soccer project, a publication that usually spends their time in retail and restaurant, kind of tells you how we're positioning ourselves to be bigger than soccer. And then, culture magazines like Soccer Bible, Apple Music. So there's a lot of really amazing things going on. But as I mentioned, we are a startup. And 3 years ago, this is what it looked like. So not only a very publicly visible space in downtown West, but one that started as a hole in the ground and started with only our ownership group. And we've grown from 1 to 5 to 10 employees to now a little bit over 100. And we grew during a global pandemic in the world of Team and Zoom and like a lot of the challenges that you all face every single day. So we'll talk a little bit about that moving forward. But I wanted to kind of talk about our strategy because I do think it overlaps with a number of the startups in here. I mentioned I didn't come from sport. Jeremy didn't come from sport. David's been around sport, came outside, back in. Trent has worked for a number of teams that he can talk about. So we had this kind of clash of people and cultures and experience, and we couldn't really be happier about that because, being born in a global pandemic, it was a chance for us to kind of stop, do research inside and outside of sports, and understand that we have no baggage, we have no technical debt. We can build this however we want to. And so we looked in and around sports and pick your favorite brands or businesses from Panera to Lululemon, Adidas. Festivals are big in St. Louis, and hopefully you see that festival mantra coming through in our game day. And so these are some of our favorites. And what we noticed about sports, touring a lot of other stadiums during a pandemic, was fans are walking into these stadiums, especially after a global pandemic, and they're having expectations of things like personalized experiences in mobile apps, curbside pickup as different ways to fulfill needs. And you walk into sports stadiums and they're not really that. It's about the product on the field. And as we're creating this 3 years ago, these are 5 business people up here. We have no idea if the team was going to be any good. Turns out they're great. They're very competitive. They're exciting to watch. And that's been lightning in the bottle for us. But we can't rest on that. We can't predict it and we don't control it. What we can control is the experience outside the white lines. And what we saw was that experiences in sport are pretty much dependent on wins or losses on the field. So if we can't do that and we can't control that, what we can do is we can help make those experiences more seamless. We can help make them more engaging, and we can make them more personalized. So that is really what we set out to do. And ultimately, the folks up here represent, David's in charge of game day experience. When you enter the stadium and the music and lights and the pregame show, that's his domain. Trent is responsible for data and business intelligence, so feeding back to us in pretty close to near real time on how we doing tonight, what's working, what's not working. Jeremy runs digital experience for the club. So during COVID, we saw this really intersection of the digital and physical worlds, and we knew as a new business, fans might explore us from any number one of those means, whether it's social channels, inside the stadium, our mobile app, food and beverage. And so we needed to bring those worlds as close together as we could. So this is ultimately what our mantra is. Our ownership group said, we're not going to get involved in sports unless we want to do something revolutionary and imaginative. So ultimately, this is really what we ladder up to every day, is creating something that is hopefully a legacy piece for our ownership group, but also for something for the region to be proud about. So turn it over to Kristen now for some Q&A with the group. We can really dive into any one of those areas that you desire, and we'll take some questions from the group as well.
now you broke down a little bit about what each one of you do. When I joined 2021 and I heard your title, Chief Experience Officer, I had no idea what that was, and I'm sure a lot of you feel that same way. So why don't you go down the line and explain a little bit more about your role and your unique titles?
Sure. The role sounds made up. I think my mom thinks it is made up. It really, I came from restaurant and retail brands as well, and the role of experience was one that I think a lot of fast-moving restaurant and retail brands have figured out the last decade, and just functionally says we're going to put our marketing and technology groups together, because oftentimes, those two groups in an organization, they don't speak the same language, they have different incentives. So if we put those groups together underneath an experience officer, it can eliminate a lot of that friction. So that's, again, one of the things that we saw in, across industries was the businesses that have figured out how to work together, that's really the magical unlock. So when we talk experience, it's really just a management over any of our fan touch points, whether they interact with us on social, retail, digital, inside the stadium, outside. It's all the fan touch points together.
Yeah, so I'm Jeremy Tripp, Director of Digital Experience. I'm actually a product manager by trade, which, if you don't know what that means, actually this is probably the first time I've spoken to a room who might actually know what that means. So if you don't know, it means it's basically my job to find opportunities and turn them into business opportunities. Find problems, fix problems, that kind of thing. So with my background in digital e-commerce, in technology, fast casual restaurants, I have basically honed that opportunity into the technology and restaurant or concession space within cities. So my charge is the app, the website. In the early going, Matt and I were responsible for choosing a lot of the technology within City Park. And that has led us to opportunities in membership, in digital menu panels, anything that touches the internet within that building, I had probably a little bit of say in.
Cool. Trent, Bartling. I'm Director of Business Intelligence for the club. And really that's three avenues that I kind of work with is ticket operations, CRM, which is our customer relationship management, as well as data and analytics. And really what my role with the club is to really support other departments. So I'm trying to find insight, trying to find data, trying to figure out what's working, what's not working, so I can take information and data back to different department heads, which will then allow them to make data-driven decisions. So a lot of what I do kind of lives in the background, working with other departments. This is, for me, this is, a step in my career. I've been in both collegiate athletics and professional athletics. I came here from the San Francisco 49ers, but to come here to a brand new team, brand new opportunity was really exciting. And Matt kind of touched upon it, but we really have a collection of people here across the board, and I think that has what has really made us stand out. We have a lot of different ideas coming from different areas. So really where I'm trying to do is just kind of help drive that, trying to gauge, set baselines, trying to understand what customers want and how we can better deliver it to them.
David Vedder, Director of Live Experience. So the way I like to kind of lay out my role is, like Matt was saying, when you walk into a stadium, anything you hear or see, minus the guys playing on the field, I'm overseeing it. So a great way to describe that is the tech that Jeremy is implementing, I'm taking that and making it front-facing on match days when it comes to that side of things. The business intelligence, the data, the analytics that Trent and they're working on, how am I taking that and making that a full story, from Sebek and from his overall, from the retail to the content to game to digital, how are we sitting there creating that story along the way is what I'm really focusing on, and then working directly with Kristen, who's my manager of live experience and also a match day correspondent, of taking those ideas and thoughts and making it into a reality. I come from a background that's mainly in sports. I've actually operated in most departments in a sports team, from merchandising to retail, same thing. Merchandising to ticketing to community to special events. And so therefore taking all those different visions that each department has and how to essentially incorporate them all into a show that is approximately 4.5 hours long, and making sure that everybody gets their love, and then also being that final decider of that if we have to change things up on the fly, who am I cutting, who am I keeping, why I'm going to do it that way, and ultimately how's that going to affect everyone's business line down the way, both immediately and also in the long term.
And City has grown significantly since it was announced in 2019. Seeing a team build from the ground up, how did you build your experienced team, and also to make it support operations on and off the pitch?
I think it's the multiplier effect of all these groups working together, both up here and at our headquarters. And on game day, it's not exactly intuitive for a fan to understand how an app and a piece of content and our retail store are connected together, because those can be dots along an entire journey. But when we bring those things together, that's where magic happens, when things feel very efficient and there's cohesion in the branding and how we speak about the city club. So we knew early on that we needed to create some incentives for those groups to work together. I think the thing that we were fighting against was, with COVID and the global pandemic, and we've hired 100 people mostly via teleconference. People are coming in to St. Louis that maybe have never lived here before, and you don't have trust across the departments because you don't know each other, and there's no happy hours, and there's no Wednesday afternoon bowling parties. And those are the things that I think we all did 5-10 years ago that we don't have anymore. And I think businesses have learned how to evolve out of that. But for an organization that had that critical maturity point that we did, we needed to help kind of guide that culture along, because it was the first year, it was just a little sluggish, where we didn't have the trust-built relationships that we knew we were going to need to have if we wanted to be a business that was more about 17 home games a year. So I don't think that we're not perfect quite yet, but we've made a really good strides to get there. And I think whether it's the video or if you've been in City Park, you feel some of those efficiencies where it feels like everything's really in sync, and it's all about hype and pride.
Now, the first match ever held at City Park feels like forever ago, but it was when City 2 hosted Bayer Leverkusen in an international friendly, November 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And were any of you there? Show of hands. Okay, all right. It was pretty cold, right?
Very cold, yeah.
So my question is for you, David. How have you seen the match day experience evolve since that first game?
Yeah,
A little warmer.
Yeah, a little warmer. Having a little bit more confidence in our tech. That was the first time we were literally trying it out in front of a large group of individuals. We approach it with the thought process that we will start with something that we know we can walk before we can run, essentially. There's a lot of great things about my job. I think that the downside is that when I fail in front of 22,500 people, and it's visually, and they can see it or they can hear it, and they know what's going on, and then you get a reply of you see social medias light up, or you hear people talking, or you get text messages if it's attached to sponsors and things of that nature. And so from where we started back then, it was just simple as best. So we didn't do a lot of movement, we didn't do a lot of visual stuff. Our audio was just playing music, just kind of playing in the background. And now we essentially, where we are now, is a full-on show that starts within 5 or 10 minutes from those doors opening, and we go hard for an hour and a half of a lot of extra features that have nothing to do with the game. So if you look at our run of show and you look at how we do things, it's essentially celebrating the best of St. Louis, lifting up our region. There's a game going on as well, and we do have partners that we need to hit. And we have storylines that we need to tell, but also at the same time is how do you marry the two between what's going on the field and what's going on in our community, and making sure that we're putting those individuals in the best light, so that way we know that our fans are getting the best of St. Louis City, but then also the best of our region and there's companies in it.
Speaking of trusting tech, Jeremy, what goals, ambitions do you have before that Leverkusen game that maybe didn't go as planned?
That didn't go as planned. So one thing I didn't mention earlier is that we home grow our native app. That means that we've got a native team of developers that are building our app from scratch. We launched it 18 months before we had a match, and that's very unusual in sports. Most teams just kind of brand a white label product, and they put their colors and they put their team on it, and that's that. And you know those apps, they don't work well. You walk into any stadium in America and
There you go.
there's no Wi-Fi. That you can't buy anything in the app. They're a mess. It's just it's a dead zone. So when Matt and I were coming together trying to figure this thing out, we wanted to approach it differently. We didn't come from sports, but we came as massive sports fans, and we knew that there were gaps and there were problems in those areas. So we wanted to approach it not like these other sports teams have done. We wanted to approach it more like a Disney has done, or a Spotify, or treat City Park less like a stadium and more like a theme park or a sports and entertainment area. So that's kind of what we did. But those were hypotheses. We didn't know if that was going to work. We listened to our counterparts at other clubs, at other teams, and they said mobile ordering can't work in a sports environment. It doesn't make any sense. You're going to get 1% of your orders, and it's just not going to make any sense for you financially. Well, we built this app, and we put a ton of effort into mobile ordering, and we selected partners that could do mobile ordering really well. And we put these pieces together and put them out in November 2022 against Bayer Leverkusen, and we kind of set the ship to sail and said, is it going to float? We weren't too sure. And at the end of the night, we looked at the numbers, and we didn't do 1%, 2% mobile orders. Some of the stands that we had mobile ordering set on were doing 30%, 40% mobile ordering. And that's really what came out of that match for me, was a validation of the hypotheses that we had set to course 18 months prior. So that, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what I learned out of that match that really helped us keep moving forward.
All right, now Trent, you rely heavily on data information. And earlier you spoke about gathering insights on fan behavior. So how did you design a blueprint to do that?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we had the buy-in from ownership. We had the buy-in from leadership. So I think we were all working towards one goal, and obviously not unique to the startup space, but very unique to sports, where we didn't have anything to start from, right? So we were trying to gather data, trying to understand as much as we could about people. But as we were doing it, we were very intentional on not just getting data to have data, right? We didn't want bad data. We weren't trying to track a number of records. We were trying to find out good records, trying to find out as much as we could about people. So I think for us, it was really the opportunity to kind of start something from scratch, from both a tech standpoint, but also just from a data warehouse and kind of understanding what makes sense. And to be honest, BI within sports is something that hasn't been around super long. So a lot of teams are really trying to kind of backtrack, figure out that data they have. For us, we were a little bit slower at bringing things in. We were taking league data and really analyzing it to make sure it made sense for us, to make sure it was accurate. So really anything we do and build, we work very closely with Jeremy and team on making sure that the tech they're using, we're getting data back into the warehouse. And to be completely honest, for a while there, we were getting data into the warehouse, and it's like, what are you going to do with it? I don't know. Let's get it in there and figure it out later, right? So we were basically taking everything we could, making sure we got it into one place, and then really, being able to ingest it. So when we were able to turn that on later, and now we're kind of at that phase where working through it and kind of understanding what data we have and how can we utilize it. But really, it was just a buy-in from the organization from the jump. We had ownership, we had Matt, leadership team really investing in it, both from trying to understand it, but also what to do with it and how to build it. So I think just organizationally buying in on it, and being able to kind of set it up from the ground. I mean, I joke that everything we do it's new, it's from the ground. There's nobody in 3 months to blame. It's like, it was the other guy. I mean, it was our fault if it doesn't go wrong. But at the same time, that's what's exciting. So we get to build it that in at least a way that makes sense to us. So.
Now, Matt, they all discussed it a little bit about how the club embraces technology. Can you speak more on that and how it's tied into fan experience?
It's just, again, like very contemporary, like the time that we were born and in which we exist right now. Like a lot of things have really accelerated. So, you take something as simple as digital ticketing. Digital ticketing they're table stakes today, but 3 years ago they weren't. And adoption was really hard for even Cardinals and Blues to kind of, turn the page on that. Where pandemic comes and stadiums reopen, and now you can't find a paper ticket anywhere. So we saw that obviously very early. We wanted to be 100% ticketless, but also 100% cashless. So there's no cash in our building. That's all about speed and mobile wallet, mobile payment. But we really honed in on this idea of 100% frictionless. Is while things have gotten safer and I think people are less aware about sharing germs, the idea of being frictionless, and a point of friction can come from anywhere. It can come from a door, it can come from a gate, it can come from a bad food and beverage ordering experience. So we really wanted to try to look at that entire fan journey, both outside the stadium as well as inside, and use technology to eliminate any friction points. So mobile is one way to do that. Soccer is really unique because you have two 45-minute halves, and that's separated by a 15-minute halftime. Well, fit 22,000 people in any space, and you can't serve 22,000 people in 15 minutes. It's just impossible. So we looked at it as, what are ways that we could take that 15 minutes and extend it to 30 minutes or 45 minutes? And that's where things like mobile order ahead come in. That's where things like we have frictionless markets that you can walk into, you scan your, the app or credit card, you walk in, you take what you want off the shelf and you leave. And you can leave with other people leaving on the side of you. And there is no line, there is no transaction that happens with a cashier. And those markets work through cameras in the ceiling and sensors on the shelf. So there's kind of that early adoption of technology that we knew we wanted to take. I think the caution or the risk was, is St. Louis ready for this? Is any target market ready for what you're going to give them? And I think our approach was, let's do it in small increments, kind of an MVP model. And if people like it and validate it, then let's go all in on it. So I think that's really where we're at right now is validation of some of this next generation technology that's performing really well for us operationally, but fans love. And things like those frictionless markets, they're a little scary to go in at first. Let's see if I got a picture. There we go. There we go. Pretty neat. So you walk in, take what you want, and walk out. 33% return rate of the same customers that come back. So it's kind of one of those things where once you use it, you can't imagine anything else. So that's the type of tech we're going to continually invest in.
Does anybody use these at City Park? It feels like stealing.
Yeah.
How many of you are season ticket holders? Anyone? Okay.
Couple.
All right. Well, Trent, how do you engage with these members? And also, how do you get them, speaking of return rate, get them to come back game after game and then season after season?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Matt kind of hit on it earlier, but, we're trying to be more than soccer. We're trying to be more than 17 matches, right? So for us, it's about, obviously things on the field are going well. The experience, we're getting high results, but how do we continue to provide value? So really what that is we only have 17 matches a game, right? We can't just make more products, right? So it's about how do we get people involved outside of match day? How do we bring them in and bring them down the funnel, as Matt likes to say, and really, understand what they want so we can deliver a quality experience to them. So that's something that's constantly on our mind. Really with everything we do, it's the intent of, will the consumer find value in it, right? We don't want to be doing things, we want to do things unique, we want to do things differently, but we want to do things with a purpose, not just to do them. So, it's asking ourselves where customers find value. It's sending out surveys about post-match. It's sending out surveys about reps. It's just understanding what consumers want so we can try to tailor that to them. But I think that's the biggest thing for us is just that as a sports team, we have 17 matches, so it's how do we continue to provide value? How do we continue to maintain that? Obviously, winning helps. There's no secret there, but you that have been to City Park understand what the experience is there, and I think that's something unique that's outside of winning and losing. So as we're winning, we're still trying to measure what does a loss do? How does that impact overall survey scores? So we can try to really understand a true baseline that's outside of winning and losing. But that's, really what it is it's a lot of surveying. It's a lot of trying to understand customers. It's a lot of trying to, get to a point where through a lot of stuff that Jeremy's doing, how do we start talking to people on a one-to-one basis? Like, how can we really customize that? So I think, building the framework and what we've done so far, but I think really taking that next step and how do we maintain that? It's early, but we've already went on sale for our season ticket renewals for next year. We have a 98% renewal, which will put us tops in the league, which is pretty unheard of. So, again, winning helps, but that's more than winning, right? So it's, it's the experience that people have. It's, one thing we do with post-match surveys is if people have a poor experience, we actually pick up a phone and call them. That's very unique. I mean, people are very surprised, and it's pretty funny you catch somebody that, may have written some comments that maybe they're a little embarrassed about, and it's, you catch them, and people are just appreciative to hear it. I think a lot of what that is, honestly, is just, it's my chance to vent. Cool. And then we actually are able to measure what their scores are next time they come, and we've seen a significant increase in just their overall experience, and those touch points help. So it's how do we create value, how do we maintain touch points, how do we continue to keep people engaged. So it's really just a lot of measurements.
I do want to show this, Trent, because I think it's pretty unique. Like, it's not, these surveys are not, did you have a good time, yes or no? It really is digging into the full experience. So we talked about those touch points, and to have Trent's leadership, but then to drive it through the organization and the surveys, where we're looking at how was your parking compared to F&B, food and beverage, compared to your connectivity. And so those things really help us on the experience side dissect that entire journey. And then, as Trent said, to be able to actually look overlaid with our stadium on who had a bad experience and what was going on there. Like maybe Wi-Fi was out in the northwest part of our stadium. Like that helps us get to solutioning a lot faster. So it's been just the amount of information that they have and how that's presented back to the business to make near real-time decisions is pretty immense.
It's one thing to have data, but I think it's quite another to actually turn that into an insight that you can use for your business. And man, when you get those two things working together, you have some success ahead of you.
Success, that's one way to capture it. But David, I want to hear from you. How do you measure success after a match day?
Yeah, to be honest, I probably dive into Trent's breakdown. He puts them out like Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, and I just start digging through it. A lot of the stuff I do is also just by reactive, so hearing what people are saying. So like, I know people say don't find yourself in the comment section, but I find myself in the comment section a lot because oftentimes people speak the truth when they think that they're behind a keyboard and they can't be seen. And so you get real good feedback on what they're experiencing, what's going on. I also just tell everybody they know, like if you, Trent and also Jeremy will sit there and walk up and say, I heard this or I heard that. And then I'll start looking into that, just kind of using all eyes and ears around. People don't realize that my team balloons up quite a bit on match days and includes cameras and audio and outside, and then also multiple vendors that we use on the tech and AV side, and all of them provide feedback as well. And so just taking all of that, sitting there prioritizing, figuring out what's of the most importance. If we're hearing feedback that people can't hear anything or see stuff, that obviously going to go to the top of the level versus someone's like, oh, I'd really love to hear this type of music, and then kind of just taking that and creating a hierarchy process and figuring out what we can do immediately, and then what stuff that I need to lean on Tripp and Trent and our electrical engineers at the stadium, or our content team, or even Kristen, and then try and figure out a plan of attack and then moving forward with it.
And as we are beyond halfway of our first ever season at St. Louis City SC, I want each of you to give any advice to aspiring entrepreneurs or mention any challenges, obstacles that you really had to overcome, even outside of COVID. Why don't you go first, Matt?
Wow. I think there's such a purpose and intentionality behind our business that I think, the team has been good and exciting. We've referenced that, we've talked about it, and St. Louis likes to support winners, and that's awesome. But I think our ability to have our business speak for more than just wins and losses, I think was a critical part for us very early on. And we can do that because of our ownership group, and they just authentically believe in St. Louis and the things that are going on here. So food, art, architecture, music, and to really form our business around that was beneficial. But what it did for us on the marketing side is, we call those things just the magnets, is you may have heard about St. Louis City SC because you're a foodie, or because we got involved with art and murals, because we know that once we got you, the game's exciting enough to keep you here as a fan. So by kind of attaching our business to these magnets, over the last couple of years, we have found success. And when you come to City Park, or even in places like Cortex, talking to people about the club, I find that it is rarely about soccer. It is more about those other things and kind of a belief that with all of these things, art, architecture, music, soccer, hype, all those things together is what creates this momentum that I think we're all feeling in the region behind the club. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just starting with brand and purpose has moved our club forward light years.
One of my favorite things that people say on that topic, especially behind the keyboard of anonymity, is that I came to City Park for the blank and a soccer game broke out.
Yeah.
Right? I came for the food and a soccer game broke out. I came for the art and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, Matt totally stole my answer there, but I'll give you another one. It's 2 words. It's continuous improvement. We started early on in the season, never having done this before, especially in terms of running the building, physically running the technology within City Park. It was new to a lot of us, and we thought we prepared well. We did everything we thought we could think to do to prepare, and things still went wrong. And we had to fight situations where the Wi-Fi goes down. Well, after one match, we got together in a room and we said, okay, next time, what are we going to do differently to either prevent it or have a backup plan and a redundancy in place? I mean, what else? We've dealt with floods, we've dealt with storms, we've dealt with tornadoes and fire alarms and electrical issues and Lord knows what else. And that first half of the season, it felt like we were just walking around with a shield, like, all right, what's coming at us next? But after that, things really calmed down because we learned to plan, and we constantly got together as a team and said, okay, what happened in our kind of retrospective? What happened? How do we learn from it? What do we do next time so it doesn't happen? Or if it does, we know what to do. So I think that's true for any business that you can see yourself in. Constantly be listening, constantly being, improving what you're doing. And again, you'll be in good shape.
For me, I think it's just be comfortable being uncomfortable. We have, like we talked about, a lot of people that came from outside of sports, and I think that's been really cool and pushed us to a unique level. So I think when you're starting anything, it's obviously researching it, finding the need for it, but not being afraid to be different, but being intentional about it, and really, talk to people outside of your area, talk to people outside of, what your lane is, because I think that opens up just different mindsets and allows kind of, the creative stuff to flow. And I mean, Jeremy will tell you that he's been told this is too hard, you can't do this like every day for the first year, right? So I mean, there's a level where some of the stuff that we're doing is different, it's unique, and it's we're not doing it to be different, we're doing it to really drive engagement. So just being able to kind of get outside of that comfort level and really do a lot of research with people who don't do what you do, I think that's where I've found the most value.
For me, it would be hiring the right people. This is the first sports organization I've worked in, youth sports, college, and pro over X amount of years, where a lot of the people I'm working with didn't come from sports. And when first having the conversation with Matt, I was like, all right, let's see how this works itself out. But if you put the right people in the right position, smart people, creative people, people who are just passionate about it, it goes a long ways, and it makes our job easier, especially me, who leans on all these individuals doing their job, and then 48 hours before game day, it gets turned over to me, and so therefore, taking from there. And then lastly, just being able to pivot, not holding on to something and being able to sit there and see, okay, like, now's the time to change. You can't wait any longer. We saw this, and we were doing a full stadium card stunt where essentially every single seat in the stands has a card in it, and you put it up at a certain time, and that levels up to the start of the game and the timing wise and whatnot. And the first time we did it went well. The second time we added a different thing to it, and me and Matt sat with each other afterwards like, well, probably shouldn't have done that way. We'd flip it around and do it something differently the next time. And so it's like realizing it's either that in the aftermath or on the fly when a tornado hits or a storm, or you have to cut things, and it's like, I've been working on this for 2.5 months, but guess what? Now it's gone, and you just have to continue to move forward. And so being able to tie those things together, one, being able to change on the fly, and two, trusting the individuals that you have in those positions to do those changes will allow you to sit there and continue to be successful.
Another question for all of you. Can we highlight any future plans for St. Louis City SC, whether that be facility development, expansion, anything you want to touch on?
I mean, we're still growing. Like, we're still in brand building mode and awareness mode, and we want to get more people. We want to see everybody in the room raising their hand next year that they attended a game. And with renewal rates being what they're at, there's limited opportunities, but we want to expose free training for kids more. We want to launch a kids club to get young kids involved. We have a development team called City 2. That usually plays on Sundays. That's an opportunity to get into the stadium and try some of the local food partners. So I think we're about like we're not going to take our foot off the gas at all. It just may be in new modes or channels next year to expose more people to City and City Park.
For the last year, I've been in what I like to call integration hell, which is just making all of our systems talk to each other. It's got to be probably one of the hardest technological things to do in sports. It's a very vendor-driven business. Somebody comes in, they install their piece of tech, and then they go on their merry way, and then somebody else comes in, and that piece doesn't talk to the first one. And imagine that times infinity. So my job has been to make all these things talk to each other, and I think 2024 is going to bring about a world where City Park is already very integrated. We've been very selective to make it that way, but I think 24 is going to feel even further integrated with things like a virtual currency, which is dollars you can spend anywhere in the not just the stadium, not just at food, but in the retail store, in the zip-in market, anywhere in the district. So I mean that's kind of what I'm working on, and where we envision things going, where it is truly reaching that fully seamless, frictionless world that we want to achieve. Trent and I visited Austin FC several months ago at this point, and I remember talking with him and talking to a member of the Austin front office about loaded value. Loaded value is this idea where you buy a ticket and it comes with a few dollars attached to it, however much it may be, and then you get to spend that money. Every team does something like this, but nobody does it well. So as of that moment, that's where I decided this virtual currency idea is kind of my white whale, and I wanted to solve that problem and get it done for City.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add to that. I think just continuing to push, not being content with where we are. I mean, we have a lot to celebrate, both on and off the field, but I think just continuing to push towards that. To be honest, in case the product on the field ever shifts, we want to be able to not fall off from an experience standpoint, from a customer satisfaction standpoint. So just really continuing to be creative, continuing to talk to other teams, see what people are doing, and continue to try to put out the best experience for the fans.
Yeah, and then for me, I would say it's continuing to push the tech that we have in the building. There's a lot of things that we are just scratching the surface when it comes to it, and my goal is to just keep pushing it as hard as possible to either one, see it fail, or two, see it succeed, and then add something else on top of it, which gives Tripp and our engineers a little bit of a headache, but that means we're doing the best that we can, and it's ultimately providing the biggest show possible for everybody. And then lastly, just finding new and exciting things that are coming to St. Louis that have already been here that we can sit there and continue to uplift, whether that's, F&B, community partners, whatever across the board, just finding different ways to tell people's stories and connect them to our fan base that normally you wouldn't have that audience, because of the fact is that obviously we all have a wide-ranging different likes and things we listen to and shows that we watch, and so therefore it's our opportunity to kind of continue to beat that drum.
Now, who's got questions in the audience for these guys? Do you want me to run this mic around? Because I can. Okay,
That works.
I like it.
I'll repeat.
I have a few, but I'll just start with, I'm going to go far back if I can ask two. So is the data, the surveys you guys were talking about, is that different after a loss versus a win? Because you can see Caleb took a survey, and if I'm mad because I'm emotional because we lost, I might trash our stadium, but then if I win, I might be all. Is there emotion attached to your survey result?
For sure. I mean, definitely weather and win-loss on the field are the two things we see kind of a variance. And so what we're trying to do this first year is we were very consistent with our survey, and we asked the same questions, sent it out to everybody that attended for every match, which is probably an overkill, down the road. But for right now, it's about trying to understand baselines. So what's a number if we're going to be a 9.3 on a win, we're going to be an 8.6 on a loss. Once we start to kind of fall above or below that is where we can really start to understand if it's something that actually happened, or if it is just tied to the match. We're also trying to understand from just past a win-loss, I don't know how familiar you are with soccer, but expected goals, we're trying to understand how that correlates to it as well. So it may have been an exciting match where we lost at the end, but it still didn't count as a true loss because it wasn't 3-0 out the gates. So yeah, definitely that's something that impacts for sure.
Let's go in the back.
Yeah.
As a startup, how much was cost a factor in your considerations of executing that vision, developing the customer experience, selecting all of the functionality, developing your own app at a different cost than choosing the white label from somebody else? So as a startup, how important was that in your journey?
A big part of it. I mean, it's the Taylor family. They run a very successful, multi-billion-dollar over enterprise, literal enterprise, and operate very much on an ROI basis to fund projects. And so I think that's been an important aspect for us. Is whether your app or the markets or a new art installation or photography in a building, like it has to have an ROI associated with it. I think the benefit for us is, because they're not going anywhere, that ROI can either be indirect, it can be brand awareness or benefit, or it can be long-term. So I think it's the best case scenario for us, but I think the idea that we're spending money frivolously is like that's just not in their DNA, so everything has to have a business plan or ROI associated with it.
Got a question right there in the middle, the mic.
So as you guys are coming up with ideas, rolling out new things, and trying to be, creative from the standpoint of connecting all of these things together, fan experience, all of that, was there anything that you guys were really excited about that just didn't work?
I don't know that there's been anything that hasn't worked yet. I think there's been things that we just haven't done yet. Like my team especially is very serious about our road mapping. So, at any given time, we have a good solid team, but it's a small team and we're very lean. So at any given point, we're really only ever working on one or maybe two things at a time. So yeah, there's been plenty of ideas that we just kind of backlogged or put off to the side. It's been an exercise in prioritization though,
Just a comment. I had the opportunity to work directly with Jack and Andy Taylor for nearly a decade. And what I'm seeing up here is something that Jack would say is phenomenal. Your comment about the people was always about the people. And your comment about improvements, optimization versus innovation. Innovation happens, but optimization is you guys grinding it out every day. So anyway, I'm just phenomenally impressed, and thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
You have a question right here. Sorry, we're passing around the mic.
Sorry about that. Hey, well, first of all, thank you so much for this incredible panel. I have had the privilege to go to a game, and the yells of Berkey still ring out. And so the experience design was certainly thought out. So my question, I think, can maybe go across the board, in that as you are remembering that you built this from the ground up, now that you're at a place where you're getting such well-rounded and diverse perspectives, what is your process for unpacking that? And if you were ranking, which of those sentiments you decide to actually productize and build against to improve the experience and to think about the next phase, and if you speak to what, based on where you are now, what are some of those next three big things that you absolutely want to have in place to take the experience to the next level for members?
Who wants to take it first?
Yeah, for me, I would say it's creating core memories. So at the end of the day, like these guys all said, can't control wins and losses on the field, but if you can create one core memory, that creates a fan for a lifetime. That's how I became a fan of soccer. That's how all my friends became fans of soccer, or any other thing we've done, is you can always look back and say, this is what locked me in. This is what grabbed my attention, and so therefore, and you can see it. I mean, it could be an interaction between two friends who are just hanging out. They're talking. After the first game, my wife came up to me and said that there were two guys who were 55 years old who came over to each other and hugged and cried because they said they've been waiting for this for 25 years. So little things like that is just, it's a core memory, and that core memory gets created, and when that core memory gets created, they're locked in, and once they're locked in, it's less about selling them to come back, but more so creating more memories for them along the way.
I think from a, like, how do we kind of evaluate it? I think from my side, like, you know, it's a lot of surveying, it's a lot of analyzing the data, trying to understand what we have so we can then take it back to the guys and the girls who are actually, you know, creating the products, who are pushing the new tech. So really my role in that situation is really just to kind of understand and be able to tell the story about how it was working, so I can pass that information off to everybody that's kind of, you know, innovating and pushing that forward.
I think holistically, like, non-game days are really important to us on how we continually innovate. And I think it's something, you know, coming from the restaurant side, working with other pizza companies like Papa John's, Domino's, their best customers order one time a week, and it's always on Saturdays, right? It's pizza night. And so if you could get those same customers to think about pizza on a Tuesday or Wednesday, you can double sales with your core audience. I think we have a similar issue or opportunity in that, like this is going to be all hype every time, you know, players step on the field, and, you know, we run the show how we run it. But if we can get people to think about soccer and engaging our content on Tuesdays, or taking their kids to a free and open trial on a Thursday, those like non-peak days where we can get you thinking about City and a positive brand experience, that's where we continue to push ahead.
Yeah. So this is probably more of an elite level question, but I was just curious if there was any either collaboration, communication, or opportunities with Apple TV as far as creating that experience.
Yeah, I mean, the Apple TV, so one of the things that, you know, why we invested in our own app, one, we believe it had the ROI, and we're seeing that. The other is consumption channels are changing like crazy, and how people get their data. You know, Twitter rebranded, League announced an Apple TV deal literally like within the last year. So for us to invest in our own channel was good in terms of control. Apple TV, I think, is new, and we're learning about it. You know, it's behind a paywall. It is global. They're invested into it. They want to grow the game. You add Messi onto that. So there's a lot of positive things. I think we're still trying to figure out where we go with that, and frankly, I think Apple is as well. I think for them, they want to look like anything, full ecosystem. So how does soccer proliferate itself across, you know, watch and the metaverse and their eventual car, like those types of things, which I think is really exciting. But from just a broadcast side of things, I think the games have been really, really good. You know, we're pitching them now on a documentary that we'd love to see them do, telling the, you know, our origin story and how we've grown. So I think it's a good partner. It's just kind of, they got to figure out where they're going from here.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of curious because a lot of the values of City SC, you know, kind of magnets and so forth, seems to align very well with Apple. So I'm like, wow, they're both innovating, they're very, very, you know, very parallel.
Yeah.
So I was kind of just curious if.
And I think, like, culturally, I'm a big Apple fan. I know these, you know, the other panelists are as well. But just the idea that details matter. You know, Apple cares very, very intimately about package design and user experience and product strategies. I think we've borrowed a lot of those cultural philosophies and have folded into a sports club that's been fun.
So how you doing? Good afternoon. First of all, thank you for being here on Cortex, where some of the team is here. Very proud of some of the city for doing what you're doing. I just want to find out what, because DI is such an important fabric of everything that we're doing here in the city to go into this next generation, this new era. What are you doing to attract foreign-born and accommodate foreign-born, Latin and other audiences that are not just your typical San Luis audience?
Yeah, very important for us. We, about 2 years ago, set up a platform we called City Moves. City Moves has a discrete focus to meet with different groups in the community. We've done a Hispanic one, we've done one for women, LGBTQIA. And really, it's a listening tour for us to meet with these community groups and figure out how can we be a platform for good and what would they like to see out of Pride Night. So it's not us talking one to many, it's the community giving us ideas, and there's a mutual feedback of trust that's built there. So I think that it's our job's never done there. These are annual meetings that we're having with these different groups. Food is honestly another way that we've done that in stadium. Food is intimate, it's communal. Our food program has over 25 local partners that range from Mexican-owned, Black-owned, Senegalese, Italian, Bosnian. So we've used food in a number of creative ways, and that idea directly came from some of those feedback groups that we established. I don't know, anything else you guys want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that also, our community team was doing a great job connecting with, St. Louis public schools. We hosted 200, 300 students last week in Sebek Park and talked about working in sports and what it looks like for minorities and whatnot, and what that career path looks like, and what these opportunities are. Just because in general, it's something that was never given. There wasn't a rundown that was given to me. I fell into it, right? And that's how a lot of people fall into their stuff. And so it's like, how can we open up pathways to individuals who look and sound like us, who potentially would have never had that because they have one parent at home, or mom and dad are both sitting there working 24/7, and therefore they're a latchkey kid, and they have to sit there and take care of themselves when they get out of school and whatnot. And what does an internship look like, and how do you sit there and work through those things? That's stuff that we are finding, we've known that are important, and we're finding ways to sit there and connect with those individuals when they're in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, rather than waiting till someone's in, their junior year or senior year of college. And by that time, their decision has been made for them, and they don't know what's going to.
I think outside of match day has been important. We only have 17 games. We're sold out of every game, so it's hard for us to get new audiences in to the stadium. So it's about how do we go to the community? How do we get to where the fans are? City on Tap program, a local program that's connected with bars, free youth clinics for kids. So really just getting out of the community outside of match day, because we are sold out, and that's a great situation to be in. But when you're trying to progress, when you're trying to become more diverse, it's also challenging. So just kind of using other things outside of soccer.
All right, we have time for 2 more very brief questions, but if you had something to add, I don't want to interrupt you.
Quick plug for the City Futures program. It's free soccer clinics all around the city of St. Louis, north, south, east, and west. Sasha Bauer runs it, and it's literally professionally run soccer clinics for free, trying to get out of the kind of pay-to-play model that St. Louis has been in. So anybody can go play soccer with professional coaches for nothing.
Yeah, real quick. So obviously, 17 matches. You're totally sold out. Talking about the off season, I feel like City did a fantastic job in building up hype, over the years as you begin to build the product. But obviously, you've got a peak, and then you have the rest of the year. Most of what what people are aware of is merchandising outside of that. But how are you driving revenue throughout the 12 months of the year outside of the season itself, other than merchandise? What are your plans kind of to move into that, to continue to maintain some base level of revenue generation outside of the season itself?
Go for it.
Good question. Luckily for us, the soccer season never seems to end.
Yeah.
It's like 10 and a half months long. So we have a pretty short off season if we make the playoffs. It's not a problem we're going to have to worry too much about. Right when the season ends, we start talking about schedule releases and straight into new kit releases and things like that. So it's a pretty short turnaround.
I think from the business side, stadium has been designed with special events in mind. So a lot of opportunity to do weddings, private events, galas, watch parties. So that's all revenue generating. The other side of it is our loyalty program called My City Plus, which we for now there's direct benefits related to tickets and discounts inside the stadium, but making that into more of like an annual subscription service that whether we have games or not, that there's benefits attached to that.
Hello, Gabriella. I'm also here at Cortex. As an entrepreneur support organization, the team and I are really excited about the work that you are doing to really include the small business owners like the Fat Calf that have gone through several of the accelerators, Malinche, the Puerto Rican one. There are so many amazing restaurants. So I really just want to say I applaud you for that. Also the work that you guys are empowering. I'm not a soccer fan, but I'm a City fan.
Yeah, there we go.
And that happens because of those different interactions that I've had with all the entrepreneurs, getting connected with all of you and their process to that first opening day, as well as all the empowerment that you provide to the STL Santos, which is the Hispanic supporter group of the soccer team. They really just taken off, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. I know that this month is Hispanic Heritage Month, and that the soccer team is allowing the Santos to have the party at Lou Fuse Arena on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So if you ever want to go to Lou Fuse Arena today, Wednesday will be the best day to go because it will be sponsored by the Santos. So thank you for all of that work. I love also all the efforts that you guys are doing in the community. I think that the more that people find out about the amazing work, because you're building soccer fields as well as you're teaching kids how to play soccer at the location. So I just want to say thank you. You're doing amazing work, and I love that none of you come from the sport. Most of you don't come from the sports field, because I do think that innovation comes from that diversity of thought. So thank you.
All right, stay put though. Don't get up yet.
All right, everybody, let's give it up for the team. My name is Stephen Von Ronken. I, along with my colleague Melita, chair of the speaker committee. So we are especially proud to have the honor of bringing this panel here together today, along with our overall chairman, Matt Benetti. So, once again, the team that creates the experience for the team that sits on top of the MLS Western Conference.
Yeah.
I know we're out of time, but I just have to ask one question. Just between us, not to leave the room, promise. Did you ever imagine, if you turn back the clock back to last winter, before the season opened, did you ever imagine that a brand new expansion franchise would be sitting on top of the conference?
No.
No.
Come on.
No.
I'll just say,
Not at all.
I can answer that.
Maybe
in-
not last place, but not
Yeah.
this place.
You guys are non-believers.
Yeah.
I can answer it in 4 words, and that's in Lutz, I trust.
Yeah.
I like it.
So, anyway, now we have a special treat. We have a special treat. As promised, we're going to now have a draw. The team here has generously brought us 2 pair of tickets to Wednesday's match. So,
Against LAFC, second place in conference. It's a big game. It's a big game.
David, would you like to do the honors for the first ticket?
607007.
You free Wednesday?
So I'll get your contact information afterwards, and then I will email you the tickets, and then you download our app. And then
Yeah. Gotcha.
You've already been sucked into the system. Kristen, would you like to do the honors for the second one?
All right, it's 607038. 7038.
President Dwayne.
Yeah, I mean, how are we going to know?
All right, I guess draw another.
Yeah.
7038. Jeremy, come on.
All right. Matt?
Okay. Okay. 607012. All right. Woo!
All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. It is now after 4. Downstairs, outside in the commons area, we have music, DJ, we have food truck, we have beverages by Rockwell. We have a good time. Thanks again. St. Louis
Thank
City.
you.
Don't mind if I do.
And we'll see you down there.